Hello and welcome to the Casual Cinecast, powered by Cinelinx. My name is Chris.
My name is Justin.
And my name is Mike. Today's episode will be going over what's on our minds, followed by our review of Shane Black's The Predator.
And if you want to follow along with what we're watching next, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast. And if you want to send us your questions we can answer on the show, you can send them there, or you can email us directly at casualcinemedia@gmail.com. And please don't forget to go onto iTunes, give us a 5-star review and a review telling us what you think about the show.
Some constructive criticism always helps. It will help us make the show better for you, so don't be shy.
And if you like what you're hearing, make sure you tell a friend. Share the joy that is Casual Cinecast.
Constructive praise also welcome.
Yeah, in fact, I encourage that over the criticism.
Or even any deconstructive praise. Just any kind of praise.
Yeah.
I guess deconstructive praise would be like, Justin's the best, but those other two suck. More Justin.
It's like backhanded compliments, basically.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know what I'm sorry. I should get myself out of this somehow. Are you guys ready to move into what's on our minds?
Absolutely.
As ever.
All right.
Yep.
All right, gentlemen, who wants to go first?
Well, I'll go first because I'm very excited to talk about what's on my mind this week. And what's on my mind would be the Criterion Collection release of Tree of Life, which I think I talked about, I don't know if it was 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago. Time doesn't make any sense to me anymore, and I can't tell how long has passed. Do you guys have that issue?
Yeah. Also, I think you might have talked about it on every episode for like the past month.
Oh.
That is very likely.
So that's the issue.
Also, this is podcast time, so it could be that it was just like an hour ago for the people listening.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. If you're binging like all of our episodes for some reason.
First, we want to thank you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. And then we want to apologize
for Justin's nonstop talk about Tree of Life. But I am excited to hear the conclusion.
Yeah, it is the conclusion. So after this, I'll be done talking about it most likely. So I got the Criterion edition finally, and first off, it was kind of a bitch to get because I went to Barnes & Noble the day it came out thinking, oh, they have all kinds of Criterions. I'll get it there. And so I went in. I looked around on the shelves because I just kind of wanted to find it myself and have that joy moment of seeing it as opposed to like ask a worker about it or where it was. And I couldn't find it. I found a DVD version, but I wanted the Blu-ray. And so finally I gave up. I went to the guy working behind the desk. I asked him, do you have any Tree of Life Blu-rays? And he said, no, we got one in and it's sold.
No.
So they got one copy of this movie, which is like probably one of like the most popular Criterion collections. They have like 3 copies of other Criterion movies sitting over there that like most people haven't heard of, but Tree of Life, they get one copy. I don't know. I don't understand, but it was very annoying. So I had to order it on Amazon, and then I paid like the extra money for like 1 day shipping to myself so I could get it the next day.
Oh, so you didn't even get to watch it on release day after all of that waiting.
I didn't.
Bummer.
Yeah.
Might as well not watch it now.
It's too late for that logic.
Oh, okay.
Because I did watch it. I did watch the extended cut, the one that I was very excited about, because I've seen the theatrical regular cut enough times. I feel like I could just go straight into the extended cut. And this is the version that is 50 minutes longer than the theatrical cut. And according to Terrence Malick and one of the guys who works at Criterion who helped put this together, it was supposedly almost like a different cut of the movie than just like 50 extra minutes randomly inserted in. Like basically a lot of the movie was re-edited.
So how did it work?
I definitely liked it. Like I'm a huge fan of the regular version, and this one, I mean, to me, it was more of the same, which to me was great. In the end, what it does, and I'm going to be spoiler free here, but in the end, it just kind of fills out a lot more of what the characters are going through and what they're thinking about and things that happen that affect who they end up being or who they are in the film. Just a quick general example is like we get a whole segment of Brad Pitt doing that sort of Terrence Malick voiceover narration sort of thing, which I don't think we get any of that. If we do, it's very, very little in the theatrical version. but we get a whole segment of him doing it, talking about his father and who his father was. And like, we actually get scenes and visuals of that as well, which aren't in the theatrical cut at all. So it's basically just filling in a lot of gaps with a lot more character development for all of the characters, really.
Interesting. So
yeah,
is there any revelation in this new footage that sheds light on any of these characters, or is it kind of more of what we kind of assumed was going on with them, or does it make you look at anything in a new light, or is it just kind of a cool alternate version?
It just basically solidifies a lot of what I thought was going on in the first edition, like the theatrical cut, like, but I enjoyed getting to fill those gaps in and assume them, right? And there are scenes in this that kind of, they almost like spell out a little too much. I know a little bit more than I wanted to know. Like, there are certain things that are a little bit more concrete in this version that I liked the ambiguity.
That's it.
And I almost said ambiguity, and then I would have felt like an idiot. Now I feel like an idiot because I did say it.
Because you told us you thought about it.
Too honest sometimes, you know.
Yeah, it's your biggest flaw.
Yeah, that's what I say on job interviews. So what's your biggest weakness? Since I'm just too honest. But anyway, so like, I guess I don't necessarily want to get into it because I feel like some of the people who listen to this will probably be interested in that version.
Like
and I
me.
don't want to spoil any of it. Yeah, you listen. You're listening right now. But for anybody who hasn't seen the movie, Chris, I would recommend watching the theatrical version first and only get into the extended cut at the point where you're sure that like you've got what you wanted out of the theatrical cut even.
Yeah, so that's kind of my question. That was going to be my first question. Which one would you recommend for somebody who hasn't seen it before? And then my second one is, does it feel extraneous, like something that he didn't need to do? I don't know. Is it just like too much, or are you glad that he did this?
It's weird because I'm glad that he did it because I enjoyed seeing more scenes. I enjoyed seeing more of the film because I never got bored in the theatrical cut. Like I just loved seeing this family in the 1950s and, you know, everything they were going through and just these little moments and scenes. And it's basically just a lot more of that. There is one or two places where it seems like the scene just seems a little too on the nose, right? Where like someone's talking about something and it's a little bit more on the nose and spelling stuff out for you than like anything in the rest of the film is. Like there's a couple of scenes I can think of that like really stand out as like, it's a little too far. And oddly enough, they're actually like dialogue scenes where we actually have a scene between two characters where they're having a conversation, and it feels more like a regular movie than the sort of montagey voiceover thing that Terrence Malick usually does.
You know what this reminds me of? I guess ever since Punch Drunk Love, P.T. Anderson has been putting out these like deleted scene reels that are kind of thrown together into like a montage form. I think it's called like Blossoms and Blood on the Punch Drunk Love special features, and then there's something like that on the Master as well. It's almost like its own little movie that has no real plot, but they're fully finished scenes, edited to music, cut with a rhythm, and a lot of the scenes are like complete. They could have been in the movie, and in the case of the Master, I think a lot of those scenes would have made the movie better, but they're like their own little short film now that doesn't really have like a cohesive plot. It's just deleted scenes of like Joaquin Phoenix and Philip Seymour Hoffman hanging out. But it's totally delightful. If you have the Blu-ray, check them out. They're really cool.
I'll have to do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't think I've watched either of those. I'm aware of those features existing, and I've seen them before and know what they were, but I've actually never watched them now that you've brought it up.
It's interesting. I've seen the Master twice now, and I've seen the deleted scenes once. But when you watch that like deleted scene short film thing, at least with me, it kind of all blends together. And now when I think back on the Master, I have a hard time picking out what was in the movie and what was part of that deleted scene reel, you know? Because it feels like its own thing, and it feels like a complete package all in it's really interesting. I'd be interested to see if Phantom Thread had something like that. I haven't picked up the Blu-ray for that yet.
Yeah, I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, but anyway, that's really awesome about Tree of Life. I can't wait to see it again.
I haven't dug into the supplements, but like just having that extra version of the film is so cool. And of course, like it's Criterion, they release their films with care. So like it looks great and sounds great.
I would like a longer version of the Thin Red Line too, because apparently there are like whole subplots with like Adrian Brody's character that were like cut altogether just to make the movie shorter. And the Thin Red Line has so many interesting characters in it that I would be really interested to see like an extended version of that.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. Any extended Malick that isn't already extended. I don't want extended cuts of the already extended cuts.
Like the extended cut of the extended version of New World?
Yeah. They somehow find like another 45 minutes of footage. Yeah. Chris, watch Tree of Life. That's the last thing I have to say.
I will, for sure.
So I'll go next.
Go for it.
All right.
This week, my girlfriend and I have been binging Ozark Season 2. This is the
nice.
the Netflix crime drama starring Jason Bateman and Laura Linney. It's about a money launderer for the mob who gets in over his head and then has to like move his dysfunctional family to the Missouri Ozarks. Have either of you seen this show?
I watched the first season.
I haven't seen 1 minute of it.
Yeah.
Oh, just 30 seconds?
Nope.
Yeah. Have you seen under a minute of it?
Yeah.
Nope.
All right, good. All right. So, yeah, this show is obviously Netflix's answer to the question, can we make our own Breaking Bad? This show is a lot like Breaking Bad. I think pretty much everyone says that. It's impossible to hear about this show without hearing that comparison. However, I don't think this show is saying much of anything. Like Breaking Bad had an idea behind it, you know. I think this show is very watchable. And I think the problem, I guess the difference between the two of them is Ozark never really takes its time to let things kind of slow simmer and build like Breaking Bad did. That said, season 2 is just as good, if not better than the first season. If you liked season 1 of Ozark at all, this is more of that, except I think maybe it's going some more interesting places and setting up some places they might go that could be really cool in season 3. And I think they may have found a unique voice, you know, like they may not just be like a Breaking Bad copy anymore come next season if they really go for some of the plot threads they left hanging, you know? Jason Bateman and Laura Linney are both really good in this show, and I think their charisma really helps carry this thing and makes it something really, really watchable, even if it's just kind of surface level entertainment.
Have you finished the second season?
Yeah, we finished it all this week.
Oh, nice. I agree with you. I think this one's kind of starts off at a 10 as opposed to Breaking Bad building up to it, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I really enjoyed the first season. I think Bateman and Linney are both really good. So, and I can't wait for the second season now. I'm more excited about it now that I heard you talk about it.
So, you know, if you want something that moves quick and has 20 episodes that are super bingeable and doesn't have too many unnecessary twists and turns like a lot of Netflix shows do, I would say give it a shot.
How is Jason Bateman's hair in it?
Always perfect.
Yeah, stunning as usual.
It's like the head of a teenager, you know?
It's impressive.
The guy doesn't look like a day over 40. He's looked the same, I think, since Arrested Development Season 3.
I've been rewatching Arrested Development Season 1 because my girlfriend's only seen it all once, and she said that she wanted to start watching it again, or like start it over from the beginning, which is maybe my favorite thing she's ever said to me.
Hot.
But watching Jason Bateman again, I'm like, he looks the same. Like, even Season 1, like, he looks the same.
Yeah.
And it's impressive, and his hair's impressive the whole time. Even when he's, like, sweaty. We just watched an episode where he, like, bikes through, like, the summer heat wave, and his hair's sweaty. Even then, looks pretty good.
It's kind of distracting sometimes whenever... It's like watching Kurt Russell. I find myself being distracted by the hair and how good it is. Or like Tom Cruise. Do you guys get that with Tom Cruise sometimes? Like, the older he gets and the more he's, like, holding together... the more I'm like, how does he do it?
Yeah, it's not his hair specifically with Tom Cruise, just like it's the whole
everything.
Package.
Yeah, he's a specimen.
So I actually have a contender for best hair. It's Dominic Cooper from Preacher. His hair is amazing in that show, I just got to say, and it is distracting.
But he's a young guy. Wait till he gets to be an old man and still has amazing hair, like Kurt Russell.
15, 20 years from now, if he's still...
Then he can be
still
contender.
Really good. Yeah, then we'll talk.
How old is Jason Bateman?
The man's in his 50s.
He was a teenage wolf in Teen Wolf 2, which was, I think, late 80s, maybe early 90s.
Yeah, I forget that he was in that movie.
Born in 1969.
Wow.
That makes him almost 50.
But the thing is, he doesn't look like it, so I still stand by what I said.
This is our news segment. What celebrity has the best hair? Tune in next week. We'll discuss Renee Zellweger versus Celine Dion. I don't know.
Do they have remarkable hair?
Yeah, I don't even...
We got to do the dull ones in order to get to the nice ones, right?
Okay. I gotcha. And we've been talking a lot about Jason Bateman, but I just do want to repeat that Laura Linney is amazing. I assume she's amazing in the show, but like she's one of the actresses out there that no matter what they do, I'm interested because it's just got Laura Linney in it. I think she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you need to watch this show.
Yeah, for real. And what's so cool about it is they're playing people that you should not like, but you do because the charisma of the leads, you know, like these two, you want them to succeed, even though on some level you don't want them to succeed because they don't deserve to, you know? That's what's so cool about it. And I think, give it a shot. See what you think.
Done. Not done, but will do.
Yeah, so that is season 2 of Ozark. It's out on Netflix now. If you liked season 1, you will like season 2. If you were lukewarm on season 1, I still say give season 2 a shot because, as mentioned earlier, it's finding itself, I think. And it's not so much like a carbon copy of Breaking Bad anymore, but still very much the same show.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right, Chris, looks like it's up to you now, buddy.
Speaking of twists and turns that are unnecessary, I watched American Vandal this week, which just came out on Netflix. I watched the first season, and I really enjoyed that. It is created by Dan Perrault and Tony Acinda, and it's starring Tyler Alvarez and Griffin Gluck as two fictional documentarians who last year covered the case of who really drew the dicks on the faculty cars. And this year they're tackling the case of the turd burglar who put laxative in the cafeteria lemonade, causing all sorts of hilarious chaos. I watched the first season. I really loved the juxtaposition of crass and frivolous material told in a highbrow documentary style. They play off each other really well, and I just can't help but smile as I watch it because it's just so funny and enjoyable. And the second season is more of the same, but they step it up quite a bit. The thing I really love here is how they are able to balance both of those things and still tell a good character story. It's just fantastic that it comes together so well. And I really want to recommend this to you, Justin, because I think with your love of documentaries that you have, especially those like Making a Murder and those documentaries that you've been watching on Netflix recently, I think that this is something that you would really enjoy. And I think it fits your sensibilities really well. Have either of you guys seen the first season?
No.
I watched like the first half of an episode, but I got interrupted and I was enjoying what I watched, but I just never got back to it. But it's something I've always wanted to see, like for the reasons that you're saying. It seems very much up my alley.
It's one of those things I've always heard about, but it's not really a show that like I would look at and personally seek out.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and even hearing the word of mouth, I'm still very resistant to seek it out, even though it's one of those things where it's like, I know I would like it if I watched it, because everyone likes it.
It's just a lot of fun, and really enjoyable. And what I'll say is both seasons surprise you with the character depth towards the end of the season that actually comes out of this. You know, if I told you there's a documentary about a guy that draws dicks on the faculty cars, you wouldn't necessarily expect, you know, character depth and character realizations at the end of the season.
It's true. I wouldn't even expect it to be good.
Right. But yeah, the documentary style makes it really great for me, and the juxtaposition of it I really like. So yeah, both Justin especially should check it out, and I think you might enjoy it too, Mike.
Yeah,
but I'm not as enthusiastic about Mike. I don't know whether you would like it as much as Justin. Yeah, so the other thing I was watching this week is The Man from Nowhere, a 2010 movie by Lee Jong-bom. And I watched it on Amazon Prime, and it's starring Won Bin from Mother and Kim Se-ron. Hopefully I pronounced those correctly. This film is about a man who has a violent past, who must employ his old skills to rescue a little girl who has been kidnapped by a violent gang, which sounds very familiar and plays like a lot of movies we've seen before. The script doesn't necessarily bring anything new to the table. What does set this film apart from all of the rest is the way it's shot and the way the camera is used to great effect to heighten the violence and make it more visceral, all culminating in this one just amazing final showdown where both a friend and I both looked at each other and were like, well, we've never seen that happen before. And for that reason, I think if you like revenge films, I suggest you search out this movie and you watch it. And a quick side note, something that occurred to me while I was watching this, a revenge film is a slasher film just told from the killer's point of view. Deep thoughts.
Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose. So, yeah, I saw this movie a long time ago. When I was in college, I went through a South Korean film kick where I watched every South Korean film I could get onto Justin's laptop. And
Truth.
And I think this is one of them. Either that or I just found the DVD in Hastings or something. I agree. This is better than like your average American revenge thriller. This is far better than Taken or, any Liam Neeson revenge thriller of the past 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's better than, I'm trying to think of like an American example.
I think Taken is a good example.
Taken or, something with Denzel Washington in it.
Oh, right.
It feels a lot like those. But as far as South Korean revenge thrillers go, it may be more mature in retrospect, but at the time, it felt very light. Like it felt like, PG-13 versus rated R. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it felt very watered down.
Yeah, if you're going into this movie expecting a Chan-Woo Park film, like Old Boy or Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, this is not that.
No, not at all. It's more like the Bourne movies than anything.
Yeah.
A lot of karate chopping and punching.
Right, and I think the thing that sells this movie for me isn't the story, because the story is something that we've seen so much. It's the way it's shot. There's some really great sequences in there that I really enjoy. And it's
right, and that's what I'm talking
film.
about too. Like, I agree, it's shot better than Taken. And it's definitely better than the average revenge thriller that most Americans have likely seen. I guess my thing is like, because it is a South Korean revenge thriller, I can't not compare it to like the most famous South Korean revenge movies that have come out, right? Like the Vengeance trilogy from Chan-Wook Park.
Yeah.
Or a lot of crazier revenge thrillers that just go much further, like The Yellow Sea or I Saw the Devil, are both completely bonkers movies. This one is definitely not a revenge thriller so much as it's like I would say a revenge drama.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Not very thrilling.
No, but it's good. Like Chris said, it's definitely better, especially if you're not used to South Korean revenge thrillers.
It's not Old Boy for sure. It's neither as violent or as original, but it still has its own merits and value, I think.
I agree. It's not saying anything about revenge. I don't remember specifically.
It's kind of
but it's good.
Yeah, it's kind of like Ozark in that way. Fun movie, but not saying anything and light in that manner. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. And the fact that both my friend and I were like, whoa, we've never seen that happen before, was pretty interesting.
Yeah, now I want to watch it again because I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know how long it's been since you've seen it, but there's a scene at the very end.
It's been a long time.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been 6 years, something like that.
Okay, yeah. It almost might come across silly, but I thought it was actually pretty cool. It's unique for sure.
Well, South Koreans make the best revenge thrillers around these days, so I have no doubt that it holds up.
Agreed. I'm going to have to do some more South Korean films for sure.
You should watch a Bong Joon-ho film. It's not revenge, but you should watch a film called Memories of Murder.
Yeah, I was almost going to watch that this week. I saw it, and this one won out. So
Memories of Murder is like the South Korean Zodiac.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. The Man from Nowhere is like the South Korean Taken.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Is that what we're saying? Is that where we come down?
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for better than Taken.
Yeah. It'd be like the South Korean Taken if Taken had been a good movie.
Agreed. So, all right, that's what I've been watching. I'm ready to move into our next segment. First, enjoy this promo from the podcast Considered and Conceited from Australia.
Join Pip and Paul for Considered and Conceited. I'm a very sentimental person.
This has been a real deep podcast.
I didn't mean it to be so. The death of Stalin.
That was not funny.
Oh!
It's the traditional hero arc. You want to see them struggle.
There's no heroes here.
No.
Come on.
No.
And I still think to this day that they probably are still, thrusting around in the dark, to speak.
I think, no, don't.
Now it's time to move into our review of The Predator, written and directed by Shane Black.
Let's go.
Welcome to the Looney Bus. McKenna. Nebraska Williams. That's Coyle. That's Lynch. With Merckx. Why are you here? I don't think you believe me. Come on, man. I had a run-in with a space alien.
This fucking guy is crazier than the rest of us.
The fuck was that? That's the thing that killed my men.
Okay, so as always, before we get going on our review of The Predator, we are going to be doing a spoiler-free segment first, and then before we get into spoilers, we'll give you a spoiler alert, plenty of warning for you to press pause, stop listening, go see the movie if you choose to, and then continue to listen into spoilers. You're welcome.
Absolutely. So, The Predator, written and directed by Shane Black, starring Boyd Holbrook, Olivia Munn, Keegan-Michael Key, Thomas Jane, Jacob Tremblay, and more. The IMDb synopsis says, when a young boy accidentally triggers the universe's most lethal hunters' return to Earth, only a ragtag crew of ex-soldiers and a disgruntled science teacher can prevent the end of the human race.
Sounds like a hell of a movie.
Indeed, that is quite a plot. Okay, who wants to kick us off?
I will go first. So, guys, before I really dive into this, I want to make a confession. I had never seen Predator until last week, so you can...
What?
Yeah. I don't know why. I'd seen, like, Alien vs. Predator and maybe Predator 2.
Ugh, God, you're saying all the wrong things.
I know.
I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm shaking my head in disappointment at you.
I can hear it. I'm used to that. I apologize to both of you and to Arnold Schwarzenegger and to the world in general for having never watched The Predator. But yeah, so I watched it, and there are aspects I did enjoy. Mainly the last third of the film I really enjoyed. I didn't necessarily enjoy the first 2/3 of the film. I'm sure if I had watched it as a kid, I would have loved it, but because of circumstances, I did not. So yeah, that's how I felt about Predator. I thought it was decent. Especially the last third, where it's just Arnold Schwarzenegger versus Predator. I thought that was really cool. So, I've really enjoyed a lot of Shane Black's stuff. I kind of feel like the whole franchise has gotten kind of stale, so I was hoping that Shane Black could breathe some new life into it. However, hearing all the early responses to it, my hopes were not very high for this film. I feel like there's really two movies in this film, and one is just kind of a cheap Predator story, and the other one is The Dream Team meets the Predator universe. Are you guys familiar with The Dream Team at all? Michael Keaton movie with Christopher Lloyd back in 1989?
No, I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I have not seen it, so not that familiar with it.
Well, it's actually really good. It's kind of, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel, and I feel like that later part, the Dream Team meets the Predator universe, is actually where Shane Black really shines through, and the other is just kind of a nonsense story about Predators that makes very little sense to me, and we can get into that later. But yeah, so there is this one section of this film that I really enjoyed, and then the rest of it kind of wasn't very good. There is one thing about this movie that really bothered me, and that is a trope that basically is in Hollywood and has been going around for a long time.
Oh, I know what it is, and I have the same complaint, I think.
Yeah, autism.
Yep.
Oh, good.
Oh, that's it. I agree. Go on.
Yeah. Having autism does not give you superpowers. And I feel like that depiction of it does not do any favors to us or to the people with autism. Yeah, I really hope that trope finishes soon because it's not good. And that's my thoughts on the film. Justin, what did you think?
Well, so I have seen most of the Predator movies up to this point. I think the only one I have not seen, or if I have seen it, it's been so long I don't remember it, was Predator 2. So I've seen Predator, the Alien vs. Predator films, Predators. I saw all of that. And there was a part of me that really loved the ending of the first Alien vs. Predator, where the human and the Predator kind of worked together. And like, I think it ends with like a shot of them running away from an explosion. And I kind of just enjoyed that on a really cheesy level. But other than that, I don't think I really liked anything in any of the films other than the first Predator, which I liked and always have. It's very fun, very cheesy. And especially in hindsight, I think it just gets more and more cheesy as we get further and further away from it. So with its track record, I just honestly didn't care about The Predator or any other Predator movies. If any amount of like hope I had for it, if there was any, it came from Shane Black, because he did Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I really, really love. And I don't think I've seen any of his other films up until I was getting ready to go see The Predator. I decided to watch The Nice Guys, which is his most recent film before The Predator, which I enjoyed, but not that much. Like, it was fun, but I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again. Like, I didn't leave with like overly fond memories of any of the characters or anything like that. So again, it kind of like killed a little excitement for me for The Predator. So coming from that place, I was mostly pleasantly surprised by this movie. It has its issues, some of which you've said, Chris, some of which we haven't talked about, but we will touch on. I think the film kind of gets less and less interesting as it goes on. So, but like particularly like the third act for me of the film, that's the only time I really found myself like waiting for the movie to be over, thinking like, okay, this should be over pretty soon, I hope, because I started to get a little uninterested, and it just kind of lost some of the things that I was enjoying about it previously. That being said, it's probably my second favorite Predator film. I enjoyed it more than Predators, which is probably the other maybe decent Predator film. Yeah, so that's my general thoughts. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. On the whole, I had mostly fun with it. I wasn't really bored. It just like the third act seemed like a little long, or possibly just wasn't really doing enough that I found interesting. So yeah, that's it. Mike, what do you think?
Okay, so yeah, I have a special place in my heart for Predator, the original. My grandpa showed me that movie when I was 5 or 6. I think it was probably one of my first rated R movies. I remember very vividly being blown away by it. So I've always held that movie in high regard as like the best of the Schwarzenegger non-Cameron films. Like I can't think of a better Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that James Cameron wasn't directly responsible for than the first Predator movie.
Jingle all the way.
You know, I agree that Predator could have used Sinbad.
That would have made the movie a lot better.
Yeah.
So I had high hopes for this one when I heard that Shane Black was doing it, although lately I have been a little cooler on his stuff than I used to be. I haven't really liked many or any of the Predator sequels, and by that I mean I don't like them at all. I liked Predators a little bit at the time, but I haven't seen that one since theaters. And ultimately, I remember the third act was really stupid.
I've had no desire to see Predator since theater either.
Yeah, I remember the beginning of that movie is awesome. I think about the beginning of that movie all the time.
Like the literal beginning?
Yeah, the literal like first scene of the movie is really awesome. So anyway, The Predator. This movie was a big disappointment for me. It had some really cool moments in it near the start of the movie that I liked quite a bit. For example, there's some really nice Predator on human carnage in closed-in areas that works really well and is a lot of fun. And then we leave that scene behind and meet the rest of our group of scrappy heroes. And in my opinion, the movie gets really weird and tonally inconsistent after that and never really recovers. The film sort of bounces back and forth between comedy and action, but doesn't commit enough to either one of them for either of them to be successful. There are some really cool moments here and there throughout the movie that I really enjoyed, but overall, the movie felt weird and sloppy. It felt like Olivia Munn didn't work well with the humor at all. She was very serious the whole time. Tom Jane's character has Tourette syndrome for some reason, but we can get into all that later. To wrap it up, I think some of the actors pull off the 80s soldier team throwback humor, just not all of them. And a lot of it really did not work, and when it didn't work, it was extremely distracting. And I think some of the special effects look really, really bad.
Oh, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with that.
But this movie is very violent, like the first one. Like, it's not PG-13 like the Alien versus Predator movies. They really lean into the violence of Predator, but in my opinion, not in a satisfying way.
I would agree with that. And that every time someone died in a very gory way, it just felt like gore for gore's sake, which I guess that's what the first one did to an extent. But it never felt very satisfying. It
felt more impactful and violent and scary than like a horror movie. This just felt like a CGI mess.
It kind of seemed like a joke too. Like there'd be gore, and so the gore was for a joke's sake. Like people were falling off roofs at one scene, and so it kind of seemed to me like a joke. That we were supposed to kind of laugh.
It just doesn't have the same feeling at all. Like when there are deaths happening in there. So I agree with you.
Right, and maybe that's a result of reshoots. I know a lot of this film did have some reshoots, so it's possible that a lot of the CGI didn't have time or budget at that point to look really good. But that's still a fault of the movie.
Yeah,
right,
for sure.
I also want to jump off something we were kind of mentioning on earlier. This movie, in my opinion, makes Predators seem better. It makes me want to go back and rewatch that movie again.
Okay.
It also is not as good as Predator 2 in fact, it's only better than the Alien versus Predator Requiem movies. Or actually, only one of them is called Requiem, but there's two of them, and they both suck.
Agree that this is definitely better than Alien versus Predator. Either of them.
Yeah.
So I think I agree with you, Mike, when you said that the film tonally has some like shifts that don't really work. Like it goes between the action and comedy, and sometimes like the comedy will feel out of place or like poorly timed.
Yeah.
And I think there's one of those moments that I know in my head when I'm thinking about it is one of those moments. But I really enjoyed there's a moment, and I'll be kind of vague, but I think this movie might have one of my favorite thumbs up scenes in movie history. Do you guys? I'm being vague, but like,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's the only thumbs up scene in the movie, but it's one of those things where like at the point that it happened in the movie, I was still into it enough where I was just like, huh, that's funny. And just fully enjoyed that.
Well, I'll tell you what, speaking of that humor, the audience I was with was cracking up the whole time at this movie.
Yeah, mine too.
So though the humor did not land for me, especially anything from Olivia Munn and Thomas Jane, it definitely worked for a lot of people there, and it was getting like lots of laughter. And that scene you're talking about, specifically the thumbs up scene, it got a lot of laughter too. So you're not alone there.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I know that it's just stupid.
Now there's a couple moments in the movie that made me laugh too. Like not all of the humor doesn't land for me. Like I said, I think a lot of the guys pull it off really well.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
with that.
and I think that's some of my favorite part of the movies, and that's the part of the movie that I was enjoying more than anything else. Like there are moments in it that don't work, but I was enjoying the team and like the group of characters and their interaction. And as I kind of got to know them and got to know all the characters' tics, I enjoyed how much fun they were having with the interaction between them. And that's kind of where I think Shane Black shines as like a writer and director, because the most memorable things for me about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is the banter and like the giving each other shit that Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer do in that film. And I think that's like the best part of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Like I remembered all of that after my first viewing before I remembered like what actually happened as far as the main plot goes and what was going on with Michelle Monaghan. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's where this film was working for me. And as we get into, later on, that stuff, takes a side seat. That's not the right phrase, but it gets like on the back burner for like all of the, more action-y Predator
back
stuff.
Seat would have worked.
The back seat. There we go. I was dancing all around it, really.
Back burner, side seat, whatever.
Yeah. And but as the film gets more actiony, it loses some of that, and when it tries to like pepper it in there, it's not as successful as when it's mainly that. So that's the part of the film I was really enjoying.
It really feels, to go back to my two movies, it feels like Shane Black is making a movie here, and then the studio is also making a movie here. That they're kind of shoehorning in like this world building stuff so they can have a sequel. And I like the Shane Black movie, or what I interpret to be Shane Black's movie. But everything else for me is just not good.
And to jump off of that, what I will say is I would have enjoyed the comedy being in there a lot more, and I would have enjoyed it more when it left had, like I said, the action been worth the while. The action needed to be much better. This felt fake and bland and rushed. And like I said, if you're going to be an action comedy, you have to deliver on one of the things well, right? You can't just half-ass both of those things.
Yeah, I think neither one can be bad, really.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, at least, you can't have one of those things just not be good. I think what worked about the first Predator was it was almost a horror movie with no real plot. It was like one guy seeing everyone he spent his whole life, or the whole movie with, die, and then him being totally unprepared, and he manages to hide and prepare to be a better hunter than like a crazy godlike alien. Mm-hmm. That's what's so good about the first one. It's one man against the odds. Every Predator sequel since then has failed to get that right. It's
a slasher film.
It's an easy formula, and they're not even trying to get it right. Like, you need a group of people, and through the course of the movie, you need to whittle it down to one or two people, and then have those people struggle to survive for the rest of the movie. That is what makes the first one work, right? There's no plot to speak of. There's no exposition about who the aliens are, what they want, or why they're here. They're just hunters, and that's the end. That's all we need.
For me, that's the problem with the third act. They all of a sudden remembered, oh, wait, we are a Predator movie, and we got to do this other stuff real quick. And it like kind of almost turned on a dime and was trying to do something completely different than it's been doing for the rest of the movie.
I mean, I think I know what you mean. Let's like a killer in a scary movie who's just nuts is scary. Like Michael Myers in the original Halloween, like, is just this guy going around killing people, and he doesn't talk and he doesn't monologue and explain what he's doing. It's just like a scary dude. And the same thing with the first Predator. But as these Predator sequels go on, they try to explain why the Predators exist. Why are they coming to Earth? What are they planning to do? And it's like, I don't really care. I just want to know that this thing, like,
I want to see someone cover themselves in mud and shoot it with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, it's not hard. More one-on-one hunting action, and more bodybuilders. That's what makes Predator work.
It's really what we're
more
missing.
Biceps.
Collectively, I think each person in the original Predator film had more inches of bicep than all of the team put together in this one.
Exactly. These guys don't lift. They don't. There's no
bodybuilders.
Yeah, there's no bodybuilders, and like, what is the Predator's going to look at these scrawny dudes and be like, "Man, what happened to the '80s? Yeah, I miss this planet in the '80s when people knew how to look like men."
Yeah, they knew what steroids were.
They're too easy to hunt. They're getting bored. Or maybe it's like their warm-up planet now.
Yeah, that would explain the ending. They're bored because we're not bodybuilding anymore and we're all weak, so the end happens.
Sure.
That's a tease. If you haven't seen the movie, you either have to listen to spoilers and get spoiled, or go see the movie and join us in spoilers.
Yeah.
So with that, are we ready to move into spoilers for The Predator?
Almost ready to go into spoilers. We do actually have a question before we get there. So you guys ready to answer it?
I forgot. My bad. Yeah, of course we do.
Cool. So this is from Jerry Hart on Facebook.
Good old Jerry Hart.
And he says / asks, I hear there's a gratuitous scene involving Olivia Munn's character. How do you feel the movie treated its only significant female character?
Well, I would say that the scene in question does not show anything. There's no nudity in the movie. So it's not gratuitous in that sense. I don't think it treats her badly, but there's certainly I got uncomfortable in a couple different scenes in this movie, not because anyone says anything bad, but because it felt like a very old school way of looking at things. Like, I don't think this is a spoiler, but there's one example in the movie where the hero has to pull up on a motorcycle and he tells Olivia Munn to get on with him. And so, like, she sits facing him,
right,
like on the motorcycle instead of just sitting behind him like a normal person would. But it has to be like sexual tension. So like there's some ham-fisted stuff like that that's really obvious, I think.
Yeah, the scene he's talking about, it's to me it wasn't gratuitous in any way. Like we didn't get any sort of, like you said, Mike, there's no like full shot of what's going on. There's no sex appeal to me that is intended with what's going on in that scene.
It's not filmed sexy or gratuitous at all.
Yeah, exactly.
That said, there is a scene in particular, and it's very early on in the movie, and it sounds like we're walking around it. It's really not that big a deal. But that particular scene, I don't think would have been in there had her character been a man.
Right. Yeah, and to me, while I agree that it's like if there had been nudity or if it had been shot for, the male gaze or whatever, the scene doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense to me. That she's going through a decontamination center and she's in a hurry. So her doing what she does doesn't necessarily make sense to me. And that's a lot of this movie. So
right. And I'm also trying to remember what it is that she really does that affects much in the movie. Like they give her some very important brainy stuff to do because she's a scientist, right? And I'm not sure that by the end of the movie it adds up enough for that to feel significant. And I'm not going to say she doesn't do anything in the movie, but I feel like the things that they gave her to kind of elevate that role to more than just the female that's not doing anything, they don't really feel like they pay off in much of a way. And maybe it's like a sort of a sequel setup sort of stuff that's going on with that. And maybe we're not getting the full picture, but that's my only real issue with her character. I think they gave her more than just damsel in distress, more than just the eye candy girl character in the movie, right? Like she's got personality and brains and thoughts.
Oh, she's definitely a hero for sure. She's the more interesting of the two protagonists, in my opinion. I don't think Olivia Munn is cut out for the comedy chops that Shane Black's movies call for. Anyway, Jerry, thanks for the question.
Keep them coming.
Yeah, keep them coming. So, are we ready now to move into spoilers for The Predator?
Yep, for sure.
Oh, wait, there's one more. Just kidding, guys.
No, I guess Rosebud is just a piece in a jigsaw puzzle.
I'll tell you what, give me one cigarette you got up there, I'll tell you all about it. And here we go.
All right, Chris, I wanted to go ahead and hop off something you said earlier whenever we were not in spoilers. Autism. The trope of having autism essentially be a power of some sort. Like, I don't think I like the idea of autism being portrayed like that in movies, like it's a superpower or the key plot device that's needed to solve like some kind of fictional problem that people are never going to run into in the real world. It seems like a weird trope that's really insensitive and kind of irresponsible. And I don't even have anyone in my life personally that is affected by this in any significant way, but it still bothers me quite a bit.
I actually have a friend whose son is autistic, or as they say, on the spectrum. And the way it's depicted in movies, especially as a plot device in such a way, it doesn't show you what autism is, and it gives you a false idea of what it is. And I say just make something up. You don't have to call it autism. You can call it something, I don't know.
Like, if we can clarify, he has Asperger's, which isn't quite autism officially. It's like slightly a lesser
I know the kids
autism.
were saying Asperger's at the beginning, but I thought at some point it was clear that
being
he
on
was
the
autistic.
spectrum. Being on the spectrum makes it autistic.
It does, but I was just saying you said call it something else, and I think they refer to it as Asperger's, which is...
Don't call it a real thing. Don't call it a real disease that children are born with. Like, make up a fictional quirk for this kid to have, and have him always have been just like a quirky kid. Like in Tully. Like there's a point where like in Tully, I think they just say like the kid's quirky. They don't know what's wrong with him. Just do that.
Yeah. Something else. I
think
it rubs me the wrong
I think
way.
if you're going to do it and you're going to use it, I mean, I don't think you can. It's inherently bad to like use autism, but I think if you were going to use it and have some like sort of upside from it or some sort of a like thing that a character can do, I think you also have to portray the bad side of it. Like it has to, I think it should feel like a bit more of a mixed bag. Like I think it's not good to like romanticize it. which I think is what's
Right,
happening mostly in this movie. It does almost show some bad stuff that like he's picked on in school because he's weird and different. And like when loud sounds happen, he kind of shuts down, and that's not particularly helpful, but they don't do enough with it. And they don't go to any worse place than that. Like things that do come with autism.
And later in the film, the loud noises don't necessarily affect him.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're gonna show it in a realistic way, and that's why I'm telling Predator or the Predator to choose something different, because there's very little realism in this movie. So pick something different. You know, they don't have the time to show it in a realistic way.
Right, and I think it's compounded by the fact that the rest of the movie also highlights other disorders that people might have that aren't there for any particular reason. It just seems like an ongoing theme of the movie. For example, Tom Jane's character who has Tourette syndrome.
That one I think is really there for no reason. I think they try to do stuff with the Asperger's / autism that isn't as successful as I think they want it to be. But I totally agree. Tom Jane's Tourette's, I'm like, what is the point of that other than to milk humor out of it?
Yeah, what I think the point is because Shane Black's character in the original one was telling pussy jokes the whole time. And so I almost think the Thomas Jane character is a callback to Shane Black's character in the first one, because he shouts pussy a lot.
I guess it's like, how do you write a character that can get away with making pussy jokes and saying pussy a bunch in 2018 and not have that character be immediately unlikable and have everyone hate him?
Right.
We'll give him Tourette's.
Well, mission failed because he was immediately unlikable and I hated him.
Yeah, and that's too bad because I really like Thomas Jane.
Yeah, but man, his character, every time he was on screen, I hated it. Every scene.
I'm not quite that negative on it, but yeah, I can understand why you would be.
It was terrible.
I didn't hate it that much, but there wasn't there a scene with like, there was the scene with him and Olivia Munn where he accidentally like, blurts out like, I'm like, eat your pussy or something like that to Olivia Munn.
Yeah, and she has to ask him what he said like 5 times.
Yeah, and there's a back and forth like, did you just say that? And he said, nope. I said,
they try to make up
whatever, what other thing? And like that went on way too long. It wasn't funny the first exchange and continued to not be funny as they went back and forth like 5 or 6 times.
Completely agree there. I think pacing is a big factor in why I don't like this movie. Like the main guy at the beginning of the movie, he ships all this stuff to his son. He swallows the cloaking device. He ends up getting arrested. Tells them he saw an alien right away anyway. Then, they stick him on a bus with these guys, and then on the way to where they're going, they've been on the bus maybe an hour. They are best buds because they're all soldiers, and that's all you need to know. And they're willing to go fight alien. What? Like, this plot is completely nonsense. Give me a time jump. Like stick him in prison and then say like 2 years later and have him be in prison for like a long time so he gets to know these guys. I don't know. Like it seems like a weird thing to have him have his own squad. They get murdered. He gets arrested, meets some other people who have been arrested, and then these are the people we're hanging out with the rest of the movie as if they have like this brotherhood.
I don't know that any of that bothered me while watching the movie. I think like in my head, it was like these guys have been in some way sort of betrayed or they're being imprisoned by their government and they kind of have to go against the government and be like fugitives in order to protect the guy's son and track down the predator or whatever. And it sort of felt like they were banded together by their distrust of the government. And for me, that was kind of enough.
I understand where you're coming from, but I think they bonded. Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. They bonded over finding the alien. And in a movie like this, I'm not necessarily asking for it to make a ton of sense, but in retrospect, it's one of those movies you come away from and you can nitpick a lot of stuff in it, and it doesn't make sense.
Well, one other negative thing, I've got a couple of other things that I did like in it, but one thing that kind of bugged me was the rules of the Predator and the action in regards to the Predator, in terms of like, it seemed like sometimes they could shoot a Predator all day and it wouldn't even like phase the Predator. It didn't even look like it was piercing its skin. And then other times they could shoot it and it would do something to it. And I felt confused like on the consistency of like, what are the rules of Predator? Like, is it skin bulletproof? Or can it just like take a lot of bullets? Or did you guys feel that at all? Because I felt confused.
Oh, yeah.
What was that, the larger one? Or do you feel that way about the larger one?
It was the larger one. It was the dogs. I think it was the smaller one too.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes they have armor on, but I remember the big one didn't have much armor on.
I thought that at some point they had said that he has the armor on underneath, but don't quote me on that. And it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I felt it at different points with all of them. I was like, what are these vulnerable to? Like, what are the rules? Like, I felt that that's not been laid out very clearly.
I agree. And also, another thing that bothered me is, and this is probably not going to bother you guys because I don't think either of you have seen Predator 2.
Nope.
But Predator 2 is canon in this. They mention it. Gary Busey's even in it. Or no, Gary Busey's son's in it, Jake Busey. And he plays the son of Gary Busey's character from Predator 2.
Right.
The thing about Predator 2 is, because it was made in the 90s, it's very, like, post-apocalyptic-y. Like, I don't, for some reason in the 90s, that was just the thing to do. But for some reason, it goes from, like, the normal jungle in the 80s to Predator 2, which is, like, this post-apocalyptic version of Los Angeles. Like, everything's on fire, and it's all crazy, and, like, it's all orange, and, like, the sun's always setting and stuff. And then it appears they've completely just gone back to, like, a normal world in the Predator.
Yeah, it's very true. I guess because Predators took place on the Predator planet. So...
And Alien really versus Predator movies aren't even in the canon, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think they are. And the first one takes place on, like, Antarctica. So not even LA.
At least they're not in the Alien canon. I don't know if they're in the Predator canon or not.
I mean, I understand that point. I think
it bothered me a little bit, just from a world-building perspective.
Yeah, I think if you were enjoying the movie, it might bother you, but it wouldn't really, like, detract from the movie much, right?
Right. Now, it's just a really nitpicky thing. And obviously, I may not even be remembering Predator 2 that well, but I seem to remember that movie being very, very weird in, like, the modern, quote, modern world that it was depicting back then.
Something I did enjoy, I enjoyed some of the callbacks to the other films, or to at least the ones that I got, which were mostly to the first Predator. But
I'll tell you which one I didn't like is when Olivia Munn looks at him and is like, "You're an ugly motherfucker," or something like that.
She said, "You're a beautiful motherfucker."
Oh, that's what it was.
And yeah, the original one is ugly motherfucker.
Yeah, well, it's not good.
Yeah. Well, I did enjoy this sort of like tongue-in-cheek bit of where they were talking about how they named it the Predator. And everyone's like, well, technically a predator hunts because it needs to survive, it needs food, but this is more like a hunter. And they were like, yeah, but the Predator sounds way cooler.
Yeah, we took a vote.
Yeah, that's right. We took a vote. I enjoyed that.
Did you like that character?
No.
Sterling K. Brown?
Yeah, Sterling K. Brown's character, the bad guy. Mr. I'm always chewing gum.
Yeah. He's definitely chewing the scenery.
Yeah.
But
yes and no.
The gum chewing got on my nerves. He always like would say something and then kind of be like, huh, and smile afterwards, you know?
Yeah.
What was he doing?
I enjoyed the risk that he took by doing that a lot. And
yeah, he made some decisions, that's for sure.
He made some choices.
It didn't pay off all the time, but sometimes it did. I don't know. Sometimes I found myself enjoying him. I didn't enjoy him mostly when he was having to be like the bad guy of the movie that wasn't the Predator. I didn't enjoy that too much. His death actually really confused me. I don't know what happened to him.
I didn't realize he was dead until the movie was over, and I was like, what happened to that guy?
Yeah, I actually had to go and find out what happened to him. I was going to ask you guys that.
It's that weird Predator shoulder gun he had mounted, like, turned on his own head and shot him and blew up his head.
Yeah, he's standing between him and the Predator, so the gun automatically goes to whatever's the threat, and he accidentally put his head between himself.
What a poor design for a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like,
cool
I hope no one
theory.
comes to the other side of me.
Yeah. And also, what, like, for the bad guy of the movie, that's such a dissatisfying death.
It's got to come from the reshoots here, you know?
Yeah. Like, I mean, he's tormenting, like, the main character, and I just want to see him die in some way that's not, like, him being stupid and just dying, like, quickly in, like, 2 seconds to where I'm not totally sure what happened to him, you know?
Exactly.
Like, I saw that the gun turned and shot him, but, like, it all happened in, like, a fast cut action scene that I just didn't quite wrap my head around it. And
they should have switched him with that one guy who got his legs cut off by the shield on the ship.
right?
Because like 3 dudes made it to that ship, and one of them got two of them got really cool deaths that are way cooler than the main villain. Like I don't even remember which guy it was that got his knees cut off.
It was the sort of like Hispanic guy.
Jesus guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the creepy guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like hitting on Olivia Munn.
Yeah, give him that crappy death, and give the scene chewer.
Yeah,
Sterling
he needs a better
Sterling
death.
K. Brown. Give him
sure.
the cooler death where he gets to fall off a ship with no legs.
Yes.
That said, I really liked that action scene. Everything on the ship where they were, where he was trapped inside of the shield, and he was like sliding around, getting inside the ship, like on the interior of the Predator shield. I thought that was really cool.
That was very cool. I was enjoying that section. I think that's where like the third act was decent. I think everything else in the third act with them all like running through the woods and the big thing that sticks in my head is like, from the third act was like Tom Jane and Keegan Michael Key shooting each other.
I was about to ask you guys about that. I like how there was no countdown.
Yeah, they just knew.
And it felt like something that would come from a Key and Peele sketch. You know, you got 2 army buddies and they're going to shoot each other right at the last minute. And, you know, it felt funny as opposed to anything else.
I just wanted a countdown. I was distracted. I was like, how do they know? Because they really
so
need to be in sync for this to work.
The Key and Peele sketch would have been that one of them shot too early. And they're going to go,
yeah, or like, no, you shot my arm.
The special effects of Tom Jane stabbed against the tree looked terrible.
Most of the special effects looked bad. The CGI dogs looked as bad as I've ever seen, I think.
Yeah, I liked the first Predator, and I thought he looked okay. But once we move on into the giant Predator and the dogs, I thought all that looked really bad. And speaking of the first Predator, what is his motivation? He comes to Earth to give us the thing to defend ourselves, right? But he immediately starts killing people. You know, like maybe they're not very good diplomats or something, and he goes with what he knows.
Tiger can't change his stripes. He's a born hunter, Chris.
I guess, yeah. I don't know.
I just want to know how they came to that conclusion based on the information they had.
Yeah.
It's like someone just randomly throughout the movie was like, I know what's going on. This one was coming to save us and bring us something. The other one's coming to stop him. That guy did not have enough information to make that leap.
Well, that's what I thought was about to happen at the end of the movie. If you guys want to talk about that, like the ending where they open up the pod that was left by the first smaller Predator.
Yeah, go for it. I actually know a little bit about that. So
okay. Well, so they open up the pod and like there's basically what looks like a fancy sort of arm gauntlet thing that they've had throughout the movie, are similar to the ones that they've had throughout the movie or that the Predator has on its arms. And like it kind of flies over and gets on a guy and then turns him basically into like a whole Predator thing, and is supposed to go kill. And I thought like that thing was about to turn something into a Predator and then just fuck everyone up. And then it was like, no, that you idiots, that guy wasn't coming to help you, obviously, because he killed a bunch of you. Like he came to like plant something on that was just going to like sneak attack everybody.
Why would you think he was coming to help you, morons?
Yeah, which I thought was going to be great. I was like, yes, that makes so much sense.
Did either one of you guys think there might be a human in that sarcophagus-looking thing?
No,
and I'm thinking
I didn't.
A particular human.
I didn't think so because there wouldn't have been anyone conceivably that it could have been. The only person it could have been, I already knew for sure wasn't in the movie.
See, I didn't know that. My friend that I saw it with actually leaned over and was like, is Arnold Schwarzenegger in there? And I either really hated it or really liked it, and I still haven't decided which one.
That would have been so much better had they brought Dutch in from the first one. Somehow. I don't care in what capacity.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. This whole movie doesn't make sense, so just bring him back.
Yeah, it literally, all he has to do is show up and be like, we've been hunting these things since the 80s. I'm here.
Wow.
You know, like.
Bravo. Good impression, sir.
He's watched Predator a lot.
It actually probably is not a very good impression. But the point is, they could have stuck him in anywhere, and you can give him any job. Like, we don't know anything about him. You know, last time we saw him, he was getting on a helicopter to leave. So,
right.
You know, that's like the one thing that probably could have given me a silver lining. But they didn't do it.
Which kind of leads us into what you were going to talk about, Mike.
Just that essentially they had offered Arnold Schwarzenegger a role in this movie, but he turned it down.
Yeah, that was originally supposed to be him, right?
I don't know. I have no idea what his role would have been, but it would have been small.
Dumb.
Yeah. So
what if that would have been it? What if like the Predators would have been like, man, Arnold like took out the Predator that we sent way back when, like we'll send him the Predator Killer, which is just Arnold's like gun from the 80s, which we've since passed in technology, and everyone opens it up and they're like, oh, well, yeah, we already have a bunch of these.
They just send like a bucket of mud because that's how Arnold Schwarzenegger defeated him.
I would have enjoyed that comedic ending note as opposed to the like,
awesome.
I hope they have the suit in a 42 long.
Oh, God.
That's awful.
Which is not,
yeah. Well, it's like
so good.
The worst was like how it all even came about. Like it was like it fell off the scientist guy and like he like collapses on the ground in a really dramatic way, and they're like, "What is it?" But like the main character, he's like, "That's my new suit." What? How do you get to be the one who claims that? This is the government's going to keep that probably.
I bet like the Secretary of Defense will have an idea about that.
Yeah. It's like, excuse you, who are you?
Yeah, and the kid is the ultimate warrior, right? The kid should get the suit.
Truth.
So do you guys think we're going to get a sequel to this? And if so, do you want Arnold Schwarzenegger there? And if so, would that make it better?
No, yes, no.
I think it's no, yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. I was saying, yeah, no, we won't get a sequel. Yes, I would like Arnold Schwarzenegger to be in it. And no, it won't make it any better.
It'll make it a little better. It may not be good, but a little better.
All right.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has a presence about him that none of the actors in like this movie does.
It just makes him more cheesy when Arnold Schwarzenegger's in, and
in a
that
fun
there is
way, in a
value
fun,
to and there's a value to that. Yeah.
And real quick before we wrap up, we do have a question from @MonsterClosetPC on Twitter, which is the Monster Closet podcast, and they say, "Not seen it yet, but by all accounts, I'm worried that the film wanders into ridiculous territory and doesn't understand the hunters." Which I assume he's talking about the Predators there, right?
Right. I would assume that too.
Yeah, and I would say you're accurate. I would say it doesn't understand them in the sense that it adds unnecessary motivations and kind of retcons what we've thought their motivations were this whole time. Like, we've always thought that they kept skulls and spines for trophies. But now we find out that they are actually harvesting DNA from the universe's most impressive warriors, or galaxy's most impressive warriors.
Which is ridiculous territory.
Which is not good. So I kind of think that it messes up the motivations of the hunters, and in my opinion, it doesn't understand them. It's much cooler if they're just hunters with trophies. The less you know, the better.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the action and stuff doesn't get into ridiculous territory. I don't know if that's what they meant with that. But like the action, while is like maybe slightly far-fetched or whatever, but like it never felt like super, super cheesy and over the top to me. And I don't know if that might have been a tone thing too.
Yeah, no more than the other Predator movies.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
It's just not interesting action.
All right, so before we get going, we did put a question out there on Twitter and Facebook asking what action franchise or just single action movie that you most want to see a sequel to. And we got a lot of like really great, interesting responses. Don't have time to read them all out. You can actually, if you haven't put your response in, go answer the question because we want to know what you think. But
yeah, lots of good answers for sure.
Yeah, but for now, the three of us are going to answer that question. So, Chris, do you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. I think sequels are always a double-edged sword. So asking for one, as long as it's good, that's my caveat here. As long as it's a good sequel. But my movie is Dread. Not the Sylvester Stallone one, but the Carl Urban one.
Nice. A few people on Twitter actually answered that exact same one.
Yeah. And I think that they did a lot of like world building in the movie. It's been a while since I've seen it, and that I would like to get answered. I'd like to see that world fleshed out more. But also at the same time, that makes me nervous that it wouldn't be as good. So with the caveat that it's a good film, then I'll take a sequel to Dread.
Oh yeah, fun fact, Alex Garland, who did Ex Machina and Annihilation, and who's written several other movies, actually wrote the screenplay to Dread.
There is rumors that is the first film that he directed because behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
Okay, so I struggled with this because there's a lot of films that have like bad sequels that I wanted to pick because I'm like, man, I want like a better sequel to that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And for example, like Speed, like part of me, I want to pick Speed because I want like an original cast or like Keanu Reeves or something that doesn't involve a cruise ship in a movie called Speed. Like I wanted a better sequel to that.
But we live in 2018. You can do that now. We have a new Halloween that's ignoring everything after Halloween 1. That means the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one.
Yeah, I know, but I guess for the question, I thought it would be more fun to pick something that doesn't have any sort of sequel at all.
Oh, gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
So I wanted to do it, but I think it's more fun. So I'm going with a film that I used to love as a kid. I don't know that it's any good, but I loved it as a kid, and I would love to just kind of like revisit that world and maybe the tone of it. And that film is Commando with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I just kind of want to return to that world and see what they do in like a modern time with returning more to like the Arnold Schwarzenegger like one-liner before he kills somebody sort of world. And I don't necessarily, maybe True Lies would be the better choice for that.
Yeah, a bunch of people chose True Lies on there too. Movie Geek and Proud podcast, they answered the question. They wanted a True Lies sequel, which might be the best answer to that question.
It might be, honestly. And I guess that one seems more in the realm of possibility. So I was like, I don't know. But yeah, Commando, like I watched it a ton as a kid. Arnold Schwarzenegger's daughter gets kidnapped by some like drug lords. He's a retired like Marine military dude and has to basically go on like a badass mission to like kill everybody trying to get his daughter back, which sounds like Taken, I guess, now that I said that.
Or more The Man from Nowhere.
But yeah, he's got great one-liners in it. Like he stabs a guy through like the stomach with like a steam pipe, and steam starts shooting out of it. And he says stuff like, he's like, you need to let off some steam. Yeah. And then he kills a guy on a plane and like makes him look like he's sleeping. And he tells the stewardess, don't disturb my friend. He's dead tired. I just want that character back just to do a bunch of ridiculous stuff. But I want it to be like just ridiculous. Like Commando kind of is, but doesn't feel as ridiculous if you look at it now because we've had more ridiculous stuff. Does that make sense?
It does. I like that era of Schwarzenegger because that's whenever he was playing military men and soldiers and commandos. This was before his like working dad, working husband, average Joe American phase in the 90s, where we were supposed to believe that this like 6'5" Austrian man is
an average Joe.
Yeah, average Joe.
Average Joe dad.
Boring dad.
Trying to get a Christmas toy for his kid.
Yeah.
That's his biggest problem.
Yeah, I'd rather him be a commando any day of the week.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so that's my answer. Mike, what do you got?
Okay, so I'm not going to top True Lies, but I do want to eventually see, and I know we won't, a Kill Bill Volume 3.
Ooh, that was on my short list.
Yeah, it's been teased. It's got a good setup. The story's there. We all know what it would be, kind of, or at least we know who it would focus on. So, the groundwork is laid there. Tarantino has talked about it before. But then again, he's also talked about making a sequel to like every movie he's ever done. Right. I think at some point. So
that man likes to talk.
Yeah, he does. But ultimately, I would really love to see Uma Thurman return for Kill Bill Volume 3 to finish out the bride's story.
I wholeheartedly agree. That's my favorite Tarantino, like the collective Kill Bill. So
yeah, it's pretty great all in one. I haven't seen that movie in actually quite a while. I remember whenever it was new, I think I saw Kill Bill Volume 1. I'm not kidding you. Over 20 times. And I haven't seen it probably in like 5 years, either one of them. And I would love to go back and watch the whole thing in one sitting.
Yeah, that's how I've always watched it. Well, once 2 was released, because I did see Volume 1 by itself before 2 came out. Mm-hmm. But once they were both out, I've never not watched them.
That makes sense, because it didn't exist yet.
Yeah. I just want to clarify so no one can be a smart aleck and tell me different. I don't know.
Yeah, something else he likes to talk about is the whole bloody affair, where he puts it out on DVD and makes it into one movie.
I know. I remember for a long time, before I realized Tarantino was just a big old gaslighter.
Talker. Yeah. So I never bought the first 2, bought them because I was always like, there's going to be a super edition.
I was always waiting on it
both of them
on Blu-ray. I would look it up on the internet and look at all these like speculative release dates and get so excited.
Yeah.
Just to be burned. Just release it, Quentin.
Yeah.
I know you're listening.
Friend of the pod, Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, so I think that does it for this episode, right?
I believe
Yeah,
so.
that does it for me. Thank you guys so much for sending in your questions, your thoughts, what movies you want to see sequels to. Yeah, it makes the show fun.
So thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you, Jake Wagner-Russell, for doing our intro and outro music. You can hear more of his music at soundcloud.com/bopscotch.
All right, so stay tuned. Later this month, we will be putting out the next Casually Criterion episode on The Man Who Fell to Earth. Yeah, which is very exciting. That was the listener-chosen Criterion movie from our last poll. Then, next week, stay tuned, we will be reviewing the new Nicolas Cage film, Mandy, which is supposed to be weird.
Crazy. Yeah.
Weird Nicolas Cage, who'd have
That
thought?
should be interesting. Yeah.
Go figure.
Cool. So if you want to send us your questions or topics you want us to discuss in regards to Mandy or The Man Who Fell to Earth, you can send those in to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Casual Cinecast or email casualcinemedia@gmail.com.
Thanks so much for listening, guys, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
See you later.